Hello, friends. This is Jan Curcio, and welcome back to Breaking Bread for You with a study on the account of the reluctant deliverance of the demon-possessed daughter of a Syro-Phoenician woman, found in the Gospels of Matthew chapter 15 and Mark chapter 7. This story holds one of the rare encounters that Yeshua had with Gentiles, the others being the healing of the Roman centurion's son and the exorcism of the Gadarene demoniac. Matthew refers to this unnamed woman as a Canaanite in the general sense of her being a non-Jew from the ancient indigenous people of Canaan. However, Mark refers to her as a Greek born in Syro-Phoenicia, somewhere near Tyre and Sidon, where she encounters Yeshua, and that is as much as we know about her from the Gospel writers. Yet being Greek, it is plausible that her religious beliefs and practices were centered in Greek mythology. The veneration of the pantheon of Greek gods and goddesses, as well as the worship of the emperor, who at that time was Caesar Tiberius Augustus. And in seeking out deliverance for her daughter, she would have sought after what was available in her culture, magicians who would have used charms and incantations, but to no avail. Now, chapter 15 of Matthew opens up with the confrontation between Yeshua and the Pharisees and Torah scribes, where he had been teaching in the town of Gennesaret on the northwest shore of the Sea of Galilee. Yeshua had just rebuked them for the hypocrisy of the oral law, where our story begins in verse 21 of Matthew 15. And quoting from the Tree of Life version, it reads, "Now Yeshua left from there and went away to the region of Tyre and Sidon." And based on Yeshua's confrontation with the Pharisees and Torah scribes, I take it that he took his disciples as far away as he could to the Gentile region of Tyre and Sidon to get away from the Jews, since they generally would not have crossed over into densely populated Gentile cities. And in verse 22, it continues to say, "And behold, a Canaanite woman from that district came out and started shouting, 'Have mercy on me, O Master Ben David. My daughter is severely tormented by a demon.'" Now, Mark does not quote the woman calling Yeshua Master Ben David, as does Matthew, whose audience is Messianic Jewish, and throughout his gospel has portrayed Yeshua as the Son of God, the designation for Israel's Messiah. And let me also say that in other versions of the Bible, Matthew tells us that she called Yeshua Lord, from the Greek term Kyrie, which does not mean Lord in the sacred sense, but in addressing an esteemed person with respect. Otherwise, we would have to say that she was coming across like a believer, which she was not, at least at the point she first encounters Yeshua. And in verse 23, it continues to say, "But he did not answer her a word. And when his disciples came, they were urging him, saying, 'Send her away, because she keeps shouting at us.' But he responded, 'I was only sent to the lost sheep of the house of Israel.'" And who sent Yeshua to the lost sheep of Israel? His Father. And as Paul taught the believers at Colossae, he always submitted to his Father's authority and fully obeyed him in everything. Colossians 1:16. Also, it is to be noted that in the cases of the healing of the hemorrhaging woman and the raising of Jairus' daughter, there is a sense of urgency for Yeshua to do what he did most well and often, heal the sick and deliver the demon-possessed. This urgency is expressed in Mark's version, where it says that she heard of Yeshua and came immediately and fell at his feet. 7:25. Yet due to his exclusivity to the Jews, Yeshua rejected the woman's plea. In fact, he doesn't respond to her at all, but directs his reply to his disciples in reminding them of his mission to the lost tribes of Israel. Not having been there and witnessed Yeshua's tone of voice, I wonder if he had been stirring up in her what he sensed she had, which turned out to be a radical, childlike faith in him. In verse 25 it says, So she came and got down on her knees before him, saying, "Master, help me." And let me say here that in other versions of the Bible, it says in Matthew's Gospel that she worshiped him, assuming from the Greek term proskene, which actually means to prostrate oneself, not necessarily in worship, which in her case was being in the posture of begging. But more importantly, it is to be noted that this woman had tenacity and was not going to let the opportunity go by for her daughter to be delivered. And answering, he said, "It's not right to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs." Again, she does not back off, but responds with a brilliant comeback, and I quote, "Yes, master, but even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table." Note that she doesn't contradict him, but accepts her status as a dog, the pejorative for Gentiles, understanding that even a pet dog benefits from being a part of the master's household. And it is Matthew alone that records Yeshua saying to her, "O woman, great is your faith. Let it be done for you as you wish." And her daughter was healed in that very hour. Now, I have to say that this woman was remarkable, one who would think on her feet, cleverly appealing to Yeshua on behalf of her demonized daughter, refusing to give up, and determined to get what she needed from him. She seemed to know who Yeshua was, perhaps having heard about his power to heal and exorcise demons. And so, with boldness tempered with humility, she admitted her inferiority to the Jewish people while begging for the deliverance of her daughter. Unfortunately, we don't know what became of this woman and her daughter after her encounter with Yeshua. It is to wonder if she ever heard from missionaries that he had been crucified, and that his death delivered those who would believe in him from the penalty of their sin. All we can say is that it had impressed Matthew, who was eyewitness to all of this, that he included the episode in his gospel, and I'm glad that he had. So what lesson do we learn from the story of the Syro-Phoenician woman? I take it that this encounter served as a demonstration of Yeshua's teaching from the Sermon on the Mount, and that we need to keep asking, keep seeking, and keep knocking for the favor and blessing of God. Matthew 7 through 8. Given that Yeshua had been mentoring his disciples, who would soon take over as leaders of the church in his absence, they needed all the object lessons they could get, as we certainly do today. And this story might also serve as a preview of the expansion of the church to the Gentile people throughout the Roman Empire after Yeshua's ascension. We know that Paul spent time in Tyre and Sidon with disciples whose purpose it was to preach the gospel there. Acts 21. And in closing, let me encourage you to always keep in mind that Yeshua came 2,000 years ago because he loved us, demonstrated in his sacrificial death to atone for our sin. And he's coming again for those who love him, demonstrated by obeying his commandments. Thank you for viewing and subscribing to my channel, and may the Lord answer all of your prayers according to your love for him.